جسدي في روحي.
أنا بفكر إذا بدنا نحكي عن السلام لازم نعيش السلام. ما بنقدر نعيش في المرحلة اللي إحنا عايشين فيها هاي ونغني عن السلام اللي هو مش موجود.
أنا شخصياً كان لي تجربتين أو 3 مع موسيقيين يهود اللي هن كأشخاص جداً احترمتهن، ما كانش في أي تطرق لسياسي، والنتيجة كانت بالنسبة لي مرضية لأنه هن احترموني كإنسان وكموسيقي وأنا كمان احترمتهن.
اللي بفكر انه هو ممكن يعمل اعمال مشتركه فلسطينيه اسرائيليه وبالتالي يقنع الراي العام الاسرائيلي انه نحن بني ادمين وبشر نستحق الحياه، يعني شيء غريب لانه هذا الكلام ما عمره زبط. يعني في تجارب من السبعينات في قضايا مشتركه ومخيمات مشتركه وهذا ويقنع الراي العام الاسرائيلي في جدوى هذه الفكره. يعني التجربة أثبتت أن الرأي العام الإسرائيلي يزداد تطرفاً مع كل سنة ومع كل انتخابات.
يا ليل ما أطولك مشي.
الرسالة تاعتنا إنه نصير جزء لا يتجزأ من الشعب العربي ككل.
أتمنى إنه تنفتح هاي الطاقات الفنية الرهيبة الموجودة في البلد وتطلع أكثر.
هذا الاحتلال مش ممكن يزول إلا في النضال، والنضال هذا لازم يأخذ أشكال مختلفة، واحد منهم الثقافي.
جزء من نضال ومقاومة شعبي هي الفن تبعه. بالفن تبعي أنا بقاوم، هون مقاومتي وهون حربي.
صبرت لأنه استوى لحم العصافير وحياتك تكبر وتجبر والرب يعطيني جبرة قوية يا يما وتكيد عدويني.
As protests, violence, and the call for political reform spreads across the Arab world, AlJazeera's in-depth coverage of events on the ground brings you the news as it breaks. Ongoing coverage of the Libya uprising on AlJazeera.
Information travels in many ways. Knowledge passes in an instant.
If you want to communicate with those shaping the headlines, this is your chance to ask questions directly to the people making the news. Riz Khan, at this time on Al Jazeera.
Afghanistan is faced with a huge challenge.
Relations have gone really sour between us and our allies.
We have inflicted considerable damage on the enemy.
The people who make international headlines.
Ultimately, the truth will out.
They want to stop this publication of information that embarrasses them.
Make time for Sir David Frost. Frost over the world. At this time on Al Jazeera.
It was a revolution which ended half a century of autocratic rule and inspired a wave of public protest that swept across the Arab world.
Internet, Facebook, Twitter, they were not the revolution.
In an exclusive 2-part documentary, Raghi Omar traces the roots and repercussions of this uprising and examines why 23 years of dictatorship fell in only 28 days. The Death of Fear, at this time on Al Jazeera.
From the ancient traditions of the written word to the power of photography and expressions of identity through dance, art is a constant feature of the human landscape. An underground theater group fights for democracy. Blind musicians make their mark in Bangladesh. Palestinian teenagers develop a photography project with kids from the other side of the wall. Across the world, art transcends physical barriers. Artscape, at this time on Al Jazeera.
Al Jazeera focused on political turmoil.
Security presence is very high.
We focused on those fighting for their cause and those fighting for survival.
He was shot with a gun.
On the sharing of power and the taking of land. We focused on the deep seas and the dunes of the desert plains. Throughout Africa, we focus on news and documentaries that matter to you. Al Jazeera, television that truly inspires.
battle for Libya, the latest from the front line. Towns are trading hands between pro and anti-Gaddafi forces, and a humanitarian crisis is deepening. Hello from me, David Foster. You're watching Al Jazeera live from Doha. These are the latest pictures from the capital. We report on what's being said in Tripoli. Also ahead, clashes in Cairo. Demonstrators and the army battle it out in Egypt. And Hamid Karzai talks tough with the United States, saying apologies for civilian deaths in his country are no longer acceptable. Night has fallen on Libya as the battles for towns along the coast towards the capital continue in the darkness. This is the latest we can tell you. Opposition forces have been regrouping around Bin Jawad after pro-Gaddafi fighters recaptured the town earlier on Sunday. Bin Jawad's in the middle of the embattled coastline area between the opposition stronghold of Benghazi in the east and the capital Tripoli in the west. Tripoli is still firmly under the control of Gaddafi. Al Jazeera has spoken with opposition fighters in Bin Jawad. One describes what he says was an attack by Gaddafi's aeroplanes.
Suddenly we saw an aircraft. It fired in our direction. This is some of the aftermath you can see. This is the result of one of the bombs that hit. This is all coming from the destructive Muammar. He wants to kill us. This is the aftermath of the strikes.
Well, these are the latest pictures from the hospital in Ras Lanouf, where opposition fighters injured in the battle for Bin Jawad are being taken. The opposition in Libya saying hospitals are under severe pressure and are facing shortages of medical supplies. Opposition fighters say they have repelled an attack by government forces on the town of Misrata. Gaddafi's forces attacked with tanks and artillery, and reports say at least 18 people there were killed in the fighting. Misrata is the largest opposition-held town outside the east of Libya. Al Jazeera's Tony Bertley is on the road between Ras Lanouf and Bin Jawad in the east.